When we think of bloodsuckers, our minds typically jump to mosquitoes or vampires. But did you know that some moths have developed a taste for blood as well? While it might sound like a creepy fantasy, certain species of moths have evolved to feed on blood, and their behavior is as fascinating as it is eerie. In this video, we'll uncover the mysterious world of bloodthirsty moths, exploring how they find their prey and what drives them to engage in such unusual feeding habits. Blood-sucking moths are an enigma, a surprising and often overlooked group of creatures that challenge our understanding of insect evolution. To understand how such a peculiar behavior could evolve, we need to first examine the broad context of moths in nature. Moths, as a part of the Lepidoptera order, have evolved over millions of years, developing a range of feeding strategies. Most moths are herbivores, feeding on plant matter like leaves, flowers, and nectar, while others have evolved to specialize in feeding on the blood of animals, a behavior typically reserved for parasites or predators. The development of blood-sucking behavior in moths is believed to have been driven by environmental pressures and the need for specific nutrients not readily available in their normal diet. While most moths are nocturnal and feed on plant material, some species developed the ability to feed on the blood of vertebrates, such as mammals and birds. This ability likely originated from a need for certain proteins or minerals found in blood, which would be essential for reproduction or development. Over time, natural selection may have favored the moths that could feed on blood, as it provided an added advantage in terms of survival and reproduction. Moths like the Calyptra thalictri, commonly known as the vampire moth, are thought to have evolved blood-sucking behavior as an adaptation to specific ecological niches. These moths are typically found in tropical and subtropical regions, where blood-sucking behavior could be a response to food scarcity or competition. The evolutionary path that led to blood feeding in moths is still a subject of ongoing research. But the extraordinary nature of this adaptation continues to fascinate scientists. The vampire moth is perhaps the most famous example of a blood-sucking species. Unlike most moths, which have a simple diet of nectar, the Calyptra thalictri has developed specialized mouthparts that allow it to pierce the skin of animals, including humans. These moths feed by making tiny punctures in the skin with their elongated proboscis, drawing blood through their mouthparts. The moths can feed on blood for several minutes without being noticed, and unlike mosquitoes, they do not typically cause significant harm to their prey. Their feeding process is relatively subtle, making it a particularly unique example of an insect feeding strategy. The process of feeding on blood involves a fascinating set of physiological adaptations. Moths that drink blood have developed specialized mouthparts that allow them to pierce the skin and feed on the blood of their prey. These mouthparts, known as proboscises, are often much longer than those found in nectar-feeding moths, allowing them to reach blood vessels close to the surface of the skin. In addition, their saliva contains anticoagulants that prevent the blood from clotting, ensuring a smooth feeding process. This adaptation is essential for their ability to feed on blood, as it allows them to extract the blood without causing immediate harm to their prey. The vampire moth and other blood-feeding species typically feed on mammals, including humans, birds, and even reptiles. The moths are attracted to their prey through a combination of factors, including body heat, carbon dioxide, and scent. Once they locate a potential host, they land on the skin and use their sharp mouthparts to pierce the surface. While the moth is feeding, it often remains still, blending in with its surroundings and allowing the blood to flow into its body. This feeding process can last anywhere from several minutes to an hour, depending on the size of the moth and the amount of blood it requires. One of the most intriguing aspects of blood-sucking moths is how they locate their prey. Unlike mosquitoes, which use a highly developed sense of smell and vision to find potential hosts, moths rely more on their ability to sense environmental cues. They can detect the body heat and carbon dioxide produced by mammals, which helps them home in on their prey. The moths also use visual cues, such as the movement of animals or the shape of a potential host, to pinpoint where they should land. The feeding behavior of blood-sucking moths also involves a level of stealth that makes them particularly effective at avoiding detection. While many blood-feeding insects, like mosquitoes, are easily noticed due to their buzzing or irritating bites, moths are much quieter and less noticeable during feeding. Their nocturnal nature also aids in this, as most blood-sucking moths feed at night, when their prey is asleep and less likely to notice their presence. This stealthiness makes them particularly successful at feeding undisturbed, and it's likely one of the reasons why they can continue this behavior without significant interference. In addition to their feeding technique, moths that feed on blood have developed other interesting adaptations. For example, their feeding habits are often linked to their reproductive cycles. Female moths require specific nutrients found in blood to produce eggs, while males may also need the protein-rich blood for their own survival. In some species, the blood provides essential amino acids, vitamins, and minerals that the moths cannot obtain from their usual diet of nectar and plant matter. This dependence on blood may explain why certain moths engage in this unusual feeding behavior, as it offers them a distinct advantage in terms of reproductive success and survival. Interestingly, the act of blood-sucking doesn't seem to have a significant negative impact on the host animal. While the moths may draw small amounts of blood, they do not tend to transmit diseases in the same way that mosquitoes or ticks do. However, the act of feeding can still be uncomfortable for the prey animal, particularly when large numbers of moths feed in close proximity. Some species of blood-sucking moths are known to form large colonies that can collectively drain a significant amount of blood from a host. Blood-sucking moths are also equipped with unique adaptations that help them avoid detection by their prey. Unlike mosquitoes, which are often felt as they land on the skin, moths are extremely delicate in their approach. They use their highly sensitive antennae to detect the slightest changes in the environment, allowing them to land gently on their host. This sensitivity also allows them to sense when the host is moving or agitated, enabling them to withdraw quickly if they feel threatened. Their stealthy feeding habits have earned them the title of vampire moths, though their feeding process is not as dramatic or dangerous as the mythological creatures they are named after. The moth's ability to remain unnoticed while feeding is a testament to their incredible adaptation to blood-sucking behavior. It is clear that these moths have evolved in a way that allows them to thrive in their specific ecological niche, feeding on blood to meet their nutritional needs while avoiding the dangers of detection. Although blood-sucking moths are relatively rare, their unique behavior continues to fascinate scientists and researchers who study insect behavior and evolutionary biology. The reasons why certain species of moths have developed the ability to feed on blood are complex and multifaceted. At first glance, it may seem odd that an insect, typically a herbivore, would evolve to feed on blood, a resource that is not only difficult to access, but also carries the risk of attracting unwanted attention from predators or the host animal itself. However, the advantages of blood-sucking behavior in moths likely stem from a combination of environmental factors, evolutionary pressures, and the moth's specific biological needs. One of the primary reasons for blood-sucking behavior is the need for specific nutrients that are not readily available in the moth's normal diet of nectar and plant material. Blood is a rich source of proteins, amino acids, iron, and other essential nutrients, particularly for the reproduction of female moths. These nutrients are vital for egg production and the development of offspring, and in some species, the blood provides exactly what they need for reproductive success. While nectar provides energy in the form of sugars, it lacks the more complex compounds that are necessary for egg development. By feeding on blood, these moths gain access to the proteins and minerals that would otherwise be scarce in their environment, especially during the breeding season. Additionally, blood is a highly concentrated food source, meaning that moths can obtain a substantial amount of nutrition in a short amount of time. This can be especially advantageous in environments where food sources are scarce or competition is high. Blood-sucking behavior allows moths to take advantage of a readily available resource in the environment, provided they can locate and access a host animal. In certain regions where blood-sucking insects are prevalent, blood may be a more reliable and abundant source of nutrition than plants or other food sources. The evolutionary benefits of blood-sucking behavior are not just limited to nutritional advantages. They also extend to reproductive success. Female moths, in particular, have specialized feeding habits that help them meet the energy demands of egg production. Blood-sucking allows these females to obtain the necessary nutrients to produce viable eggs, ensuring the continuation of the species. This reproductive strategy is not unique to moths. Other blood-feeding insects, such as mosquitoes and ticks, have evolved similar behaviors. In the case of moths, their reliance on blood is particularly intriguing because it suggests a highly specialized adaptation to their ecological niche. Interestingly, male moths also benefit from blood-sucking behavior, albeit in a different way. While males do not require blood for egg production, the nutrients found in blood may still provide a significant advantage for their own survival. The proteins and amino acids in blood can help male moths maintain their energy levels, improve their reproductive capabilities, and enhance their chances of mating. In this way, both male and female moths benefit from the blood-sucking behavior, although the motivation behind it may differ between sexes. Another fascinating aspect of blood-sucking moths is their ability to thrive in environments where other food sources might be limited. In areas where plants are not as abundant or accessible, feeding on blood provides a reliable and nutritious alternative. This ability to exploit blood as a food source may give these moths a distinct advantage over other moth species that are dependent on plant material. By occupying a niche that few other organisms can access, blood-sucking moths are able to reduce competition and survive in more challenging conditions. The relationship between blood-sucking moths and their hosts is an intriguing one. While the moths feed on the blood of mammals, birds, and reptiles, they generally do not cause significant harm to their hosts. Unlike mosquitoes, which are known to transmit diseases like malaria or dengue fever, blood-sucking moths do not typically carry pathogens that could be harmful to their prey. However, this does not mean that their feeding habits are entirely without consequence. The loss of blood can still cause discomfort for the host animal, especially if the moths feed in large numbers or over extended periods. In fact, the feeding process can be seen as a delicate balance between the moth's need for nourishment and the host animal's attempt to defend itself. Many animals have evolved defense mechanisms to prevent blood-feeding insects from causing harm, including grooming behaviors, the production of chemicals that deter insects, or the ability to detect and eliminate pests. The stealthy nature of moths, however, allows them to evade these defenses, making them difficult for the host to detect and expel. This mutual relationship between the moths and their hosts highlights the complexity of the natural world and the finely tuned balance of survival strategies. While the impact of blood-sucking moths on their host animals is often minimal, their presence can be a nuisance. Large numbers of moths feeding on the same host can lead to localized blood loss, and in some cases, this may even affect the host's overall health, particularly if the moths are persistent or if the host is already weakened from other factors. However, the overall impact of blood-sucking moths on their ecosystems is still not fully understood, and more research is needed to determine the long-term consequences of these interactions. In exploring the darker side of the moth world, it's essential to consider the potential risks associated with blood-sucking moths, particularly the possibility of disease transmission. While most blood-sucking moths do not carry pathogens that can infect humans or animals, the presence of blood-feeding insects in an ecosystem often raises concerns about the spread of disease. This is especially true in regions where other blood-feeding insects, like mosquitoes and ticks, are already known to be vectors for diseases such as malaria, Lyme disease, and West Nile virus. However, the risk of disease transmission from moths appears to be relatively low, as most species of blood-sucking moths have not been shown to carry harmful pathogens. Unlike mosquitoes, which are highly efficient at transmitting diseases due to their feeding habits and behavior, moths tend to be more discreet and do not engage in the same kind of widespread disease transmission. Their feeding habits, which involve a small amount of blood drawn over a short period, are less likely to contribute to the spread of illness. That being said, it is still possible that moths could play a role in the transmission of certain diseases, particularly in regions where multiple blood-feeding insects coexist. Another potential danger of blood-sucking moths is the possibility of them overwhelming a host animal. While they typically do not cause significant harm individually, large infestations of moths feeding on a single host could lead to blood loss, irritation, and even secondary infections if the skin is punctured repeatedly. In rare cases, large populations of blood-sucking moths could stress their host animal to the point of weakening it, making it more susceptible to other diseases or environmental challenges. Despite these potential risks, blood-sucking moths remain a relatively niche group within the insect world. Their feeding behavior, while unusual and sometimes unsettling, is a fascinating example of nature's ingenuity. It serves as a reminder of the complexity and diversity of life on Earth, and how organisms can evolve to survive and thrive in even the most unexpected ways. While blood-sucking moths may never become as well-known or feared as mosquitoes or ticks, their unique adaptations and stealthy feeding habits offer a glimpse into the darker, more mysterious side of nature.